Gaming is filled with nothing but drama, unfortunately. Now, I'm sure you're probably wondering, Cyber, what the heck are you talking about? Which honestly is a good question. For those of you who haven't heard, over the weekend, a game called Dark and Darker was announced to be going into early access and officially launching in just a matter of a couple weeks. The official launch date was within early April. The game was described as Kotaku as a, quote, fantasy MMO that had just been announced and was going into early access sometime in early April, which, to be honest, is really nothing strange. I mean, games left and right are announced, especially when they're more PC games. They tend to be announced for early access with battle passes, betas, everything really associated with quote-unquote modern gaming. The game was being developed by a studio from Korea called Iron Mace, which for the most part was made up of a lot of former employees from another studio called Nexon. Though their game is no longer, unfortunately, in active development. You're probably asking, Cyber, why? What happened that this game is just now being canceled all of a sudden? Well, the studio finally felt the wrath of what many YouTubers feel, called getting a DMCA. The studio received a DMCA yesterday from their wonderful former employer called Nexon over, quote, striking similarities from the concept of P3 in major gameplay, rules, and arts, which could not have been made independently, end quote, from Kotaku. This was not the first battle between the two studios, as only a few weeks prior, quote, Nexon complained and police raided Iron Mace's office, end quote, from Kotaku. Can I just say, having your studio raided like that, my heart goes out to them. That had to have been probably one of the scariest things that many of those people had to go through, and B, was probably extremely frustrating. The question, or the whole debate in question, was for P3, a project that Nexon had unveiled with a bunch of other games back in 2021 during the pandemic. In August of 2021, they had shown off a handful of these different games slash developing on. All of them were in different stages of development slash early prototypes of different gameplay mechanics that they were doing. And basically the game, P3, ended up being canceled for various reasons that Nexon never really went further in depth about. No other news site has really gotten an answer from Nexon about why they canceled it, other just than the fact that they canceled it, which is totally to be expected. You would want, or you wouldn't want, but you would expect that from a company. With all this being said, Nexon basically is claiming that the studio in question, Iron Mace, which we have said is very well made up of former Nexon employees. Basically, when these employees left the studio and went to Iron Mace, took a lot of the game ideas, concepts, and other things, and fueled and funneled those into their project Dark and Darker. Iron Mace has pretty much responded in a statement claiming that Nexon's evidence is based purely on circumstantial evidence and that Nexon's actions have negatively impacted the studio's ability to do business, end quote, from GameSpot. This is 100% true, and this is probably the most frustrating part in this whole situation. Iron Mace is a very small studio, and Dark and Darker was their main and only project that they were working on. So when the DMCA was put into place, for anyone who doesn't know, when you have a DMCA on a game, pretty much that means that you're not allowed to work on, develop in any way, shape, or form the game that has received the DMCA. So because of this, unfortunately, Iron Mace is in a really tough spot right now because they have to now go and fight this against their former employer Nexon until a resolution has come to pass. Whether it's, hey, you can't develop the game anymore, or hey, Nexon doesn't really have grounds to stand on. Until some sort of resolution has come to, they can't develop the game anymore. So the game has actually officially been canceled. Well, not canceled, but postponed, I guess I should say, which, again, to be expected. But because they can't develop this game anymore, they have no way of making money. Unless they completely start up a new game for development, they have no income. I mean, it's really sad to hear about all of this happening to Iron Mace. Whether they're guilty of it or whether they're not guilty of it, I won't personally comment on, but I can only imagine all of the pain that they're going through trying to fight this now, and not being able to push forward with their project. It's one thing when you have to go and delay a game or cancel a game because, funds aren't there or the audience just doesn't like the game. But there was such a large push for this game and people really were getting into it. And personally for me, Dark and Darker did look interesting just based off of the early screenshots. It kind of reminded me almost of like a darker, more gritty version of Dungeons and Dragons mixed with like a little bit of Elder Scrolls. So it looked not maybe like something that I would personally play, but something that I would be interested in, watching other people play. And, it definitely piqued my interest. So I'm hoping that regardless of whatever the end all of this situation ends up being, I hope that they can resolve this quickly. It's not going to be beneficial for either company to go in and fight a battle over a game that doesn't even exist anymore, to go and fight this for years or months and years, whatever the case. So thank you guys all for watching the video. If you liked that video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you disliked it, you know what to do with that dislike button. If you enjoyed my content and want to see more of my videos or check out some of my streams, make sure to hit that subscribe button to be notified about the next time I go live. As always, I look forward to seeing everyone on our next digital adventure.